Hi, I'm Paul from Replikator TV, and this is the first in a multi-part series of videos on soldering photo etch. The first point we're going to cover is why we should solder. What are the advantages of soldering photo etch? Primarily, you get a much stronger bond between pieces by soldering. It's, in most cases, a permanent bond. You get a very precise fit. The best example I can use to describe that is if you have glued photo etch to a plastic kit and during handling that photo etch has come off, you always see a big mark of glue that had held this assembly to the plastic, and it always requires cleaning to reattach it, and it's always a little shocking to see just how much glue there actually is on the plastic. With the soldering, you don't have that excess amount. You also have the ability to redo any assembly you have made. If you're not happy with it, you can heat it, take the parts, take the whole thing apart, clean the parts if necessary, and redo it. Okay, as we get started, you'll find there are precautions that you are going to need to be aware of, especially if you are going to be doing your modeling in an area where there could be children or pets. You are going to be working with very high temperatures. I generally run between 600 and 750 degrees, depending primarily on the thickness of the brass or the photo etch material that I am soldering. You will need to work in a well ventilated area, and again, back to the heat aspect, there's a chance you're going to burn yourself, equivalent to a number 11 blade, an X-Acto blade. What modeler hasn't cut himself at some point? The burns, if you are careful, you can definitely lessen the chance of burning yourself. If you do, it's not the end of the world. You're working at such a high temperature that a minor touch with an iron is going to burn, it's going to hurt, but it cauterizes itself and you're going to be fine within a day. It actually takes much less time to recover from a soldering iron burn than a number 11 blade cut. So that part's out of the way. The lawyers are happy. I'm going to describe some of the tools you're going to need to get started. First of all, knives, to the standard number 11 X-Acto blade, and the number 10 curved blade. This one is very ideal for removing parts from the photo etch sprue without launching them. More on that later. Fine cutters, I only use these for the very finest of cuts. If you're removing just a little nib that you can't really use a knife for, anything thicker, and even the photo etch parts themselves, will dull a very good set of cutters. If you're doing some heavier cutting, primarily if you're cutting the actual runner or sprue from the photo etch, use a set of edge cutters. These are not going to be used on the part, so you're not going to damage them, but also being used on the heavier brass, you're not going to risk dulling your fine cutters. For holding and bending some of the smaller pieces, good flat cutters are essential. Both of these, I'm not sure if you can see them in the photos, but they are non-serrated. They don't have any kind of added pattern for grip on the inside, so the touching edge, which is ideal. As you're heating the photo etch, the serrations will actually cut into it, leave indentations, which you do not want. The most useful tool I've found in the last probably decade has been a hold and fold tool. This is one of the original etch mates, and I've used this one countless times. The flat pliers that I've mentioned are good for folding a smaller piece. Once you get to about half the total holding area of the plier, you will need to progress to a holding tool. This one, I bought the additional long blades. I've got 3 different lengths. You can tell the age of this by some of the rust on these. Still usable. And even the safety razor for some of the smaller areas. Again, this is an absolutely essential tool for preparing your photo etch parts. When you're looking for a soldering iron, make sure the tips are still available. Over time I've found with my work that various irons are discontinued or the tips are discontinued. So make sure you do have the ability to replace the tip as it wears. Most stations will come with this holder, the iron holder. Very essential. You have a place to store your iron between uses. The sponge this station does come with is serrated. That helps to clean slag and excess solder from the tip to keep it at optimum performance level. This concludes the first video on the tools that are required for soldering. The next video will show some of the basic solder attachment methods. We'll see you then.